save a minute.
And I'm Bill Dieruf, the mayor of the city of Jeffersontown, running for the mayor of Louisville. I am termed in the city of Jeffersontown, as you all may know. And same as Mayor Fisher is termed here. So when you enjoy and are passionate at what you do, you don't retire and go someplace else. You keep on moving on to a bigger challenge. So I will leave it up to you all. I have 1 hour and 8 minutes left on the little machine out there. I wish I had known. I didn't read the message to come into the parking lot, but if we have to, we can move it. Yeah.
Well, first start off, you told us a little bit about yourself, but is there anything in particular you want to make sure that you highlight about who you are and your campaign before we dive into our specific questions?
So let me tell you a little bit about myself, and you all probably already done my bio, know my history, but let me tell you where we, well, you did a fantastic job, thank you. So if you read his article, it's all good, but as it was mentioned in the article, I come from the hardware business. And it's interesting when you say hardware to somebody, hardware store, you get this warm, family-friendly feeling, because when you come in a hardware store, you get somebody, you realize it's local. You realize that somebody's there to help you no matter what your problem is. And you realize that can be carried on to government. And that's what we did. When I started looking at going into politics, I did. The mayor that was our mayor of Jeffersontown, Danny Ruckriegel, had medical problems, and the doctor said you had 2 weeks to retire, and so they did Mayor Clay moved up, I moved, and they picked me to be the successor, and I said I was going to do it for 2 years. I learned that I had passion and loved what I did, so after 10 years of doing that, I realized our city had financial problems and a problem of having the pride in the city that we needed to bring back. And it was a time in my life I realized sitting down that the dollars weren't as important as what you left behind. And I don't mean that as a political statement, I mean that as a truism, because I did it for 12 years. And so moving downtown, I say that I am the proven leader that is running for this, more so than I think I can. I actually am doing that. When you start talking about what are you going to do in the 100 days, we're already working on things right now as mayor, whether it's in Frankfurt or locally or with the VOA or all the different organizations that may need help. We don't have all the problems that downtown Louisville has, but we have a lot of the silos that are the same. So it's just a matter of ramping them up, bringing them to downtown and moving the city to where it should be, that we are leaders. And I'm gonna start here, which is usually what I finish, and if you all have ever heard me speak lately, I need to instill this in all of us, and especially in your all's reporting, that we constantly as a community keep saying we want to be like. We want to be like Indianapolis, we want to be like Cincinnati, we want to be like Nashville. It's time the leader of Louisville says we want to be the leaders that others want to follow. Let's take what they have and make it better, but let's let us be the ones that are leading in the future. But I need all of us to do that. And in fact, earlier today I was having a WAVE interview and I asked the same thing. And I'm not asking you not to report, but I'm asking us also as a community, start January 1, let's also report the good things that are happening in this community, because we have a lot of good things. And it could be anything from VOA, the lives they've saved, to different community events, to when we do have the bad things that you have to report, or the things that aren't as good. We show that Louisville is working in the right direction, that we're not just standing still. So, and we have to also look at, when we look at the future of Louisville, we have to look at moving forward and doing things. Anybody that knows me know that I don't like sitting there and having things on the shelf. When I came into City Hall in J-Town, I found out they did a lot of studies. But so many times government is afraid to do something because they're afraid the editorial will be bad. And I think we have to stop being afraid as leaders of doing something, even if we can only do 80% of something. We have to be able to go out and do the 80% and work on the 20% we may or may not agree on. And even if the 80% isn't absolutely perfect and something falls, we have to be able to step up and do it again. And if you all report it saying, hey, that was bad, we fess up and admit it and we move forward. But if we do nothing, we go nowhere. The other problem in my profession, and I use the word profession, and many people are making my profession look very bad, but as a profession, we have to link beyond our term. And so many politicians want to put their names on things and they want to take credit for things. They think of what can I do during my 4 years, 8 years during my term, and don't put things out past them because the city doesn't stop. But the political leader that is there is in a short term. You know, I don't care if you're even in a term where you're serving for 30 years, it's still a short term in the lifespan. Now my term down here is maximum of 8 years, that's the new law. And at some point in time I will stop, but I don't know when. So I think we have to think of what we do in the future. So my job in J-Town, I've got 13 construction projects going on, 13 projects going on. And out of the 13, I'll probably only get about 6 of them finished. But the other ones will continue on, whether it's the amphitheater to bring the next generation into our town to say this is a place I want to live, or whether it's the new public works building or what it may be. We have to think globally what happens when I leave. And so that's anywhere from policy, because so many times people think of policy on answering a short question, not the long game, on what the next 3 steps of the chess move will affect and who they will affect. That was a long statement for just a short question, though. But that's.
Ooh, we better start talking fast.
That's right.
So, what do your first 90 days look like then? What's step one, and give us a picture when you walk in. What happens?
So that's interesting because most people go first 100 days. You actually cut me back 10. So, but no, I'm just kidding. You think months. That's all right. It's all in the thing. But I'm going to actually go back even farther than that. I am a sitting mayor. You all know that, and I am working day to day, and I have been doing it for 12 years. So to say January 2nd when I take office, what are you going to do? I can tell you what we're doing now that will affect that come January 1. Let's say Frankfurt. Many times we say war on Frankfurt. I don't have a war on Frankfurt. I work with the people in Frankfurt and across the state. As mayor of Jeffersontown, it's interesting, 2 things, that I am nonpartisan. I have never known in my life anything but nonpartisan. So for 22 years, literally nonpartisan, I represent everybody. I've never seen the R or the D. When I was 18 years old, you sign up on one way or the other, and your father or your mother say this is what you kind of do, and it never mattered because I was always nonpartisan. Never until this year or last year when I decided to run, what it was going to look like. And then as the president of all the cities across the state, led them through the pandemic, and led them also, even though I wasn't president when we had the tornado or floods, I was there. Chris, down at Dawson Springs, he got hit at 1:37. I was on the phone with him at 6:32. And it was interesting, the one thing he said, I said, Chris, what do you need? And he said, I need everything. I said, well, I can't do that, but give me something exact. And he said, I need cell service. And so I called AT&T because of the connections I have. And we had 3 cell towers, portable cell towers down there by 2 o'clock that afternoon. There was another city that called and said we have to have a landfill permit because our city is totally destroyed and we got to move it out to the farmland, and Frankfurt won't give us the permit. Called the governor, talked to Rocky up there, and within an hour and a half they had a landfill permit. And that wasn't because Frankfurt was being bureaucratic, but that's just somebody's job, said these are the steps you got to do, and it's up to the governor to say, yeah, but this is an emergency situation, move forward. So even during that time frame, I started Cities Helping Cities. And I started before that. Cities Helping Cities, to let you know, and we still have this in effect with the Kentucky League of Cities, that all the cities around the state and around the outside states would call in and say, this is what we have, whether they're bobcats or police cars or employees. And I mean not only employees that are fire, police, EMTs, but city hall employees. You think a lot of them, when you have a destroyed city, have to be home, not be there. And if a small city like Dawson Springs that had 2,600 residents that all of a sudden dropped down to 1,300, they don't have the manpower, the womanpower to do what everything do. So the Cities Helping Cities, we tell them what we have, and then when they need something, they call in, and J-Town would supply a bobcat, or they would supply ambulance care and everything. So it worked out real well. So to answer your question, what was the question? I get sad.
First 90 days.
Oh, first 90 days. Anyway, sorry, I really went south on that one. Sorry, guys. The first 90 days, right now I am in Frankfurt working on bringing the Youth Detention Center back, working with several of the representatives and senators because we need one here, not the LaGrange reformatory that was a disaster. So we're looking on bringing something back that's not like the old one. that will be new and how we should do. The kids have to have consequences. Any kid that's being raised have to have consequences, whether it's from the mother, father, or if they commit a crime. But we also have the Youth Detention Center to those, the kids have the ability to, we show them a different way. We help them get through a situation to where they can change their lives in the future. So the Youth Detention Center is something that as a mayor right now I'm working on. So it's anything that comes through Frankfort, whether it's economic development, we're working on right now. Our economic incentives on a state basis is manufacturing driven, which is fantastic for GE Ford. But when we're talking about trying to fill downtown Louisville, it's office. And so we need the incentive program to bring the office people back downtown. And when we start looking at how we're going to do downtown, it has to be a safe city, and it has to be a safe city all the way around. So starting January 1, or January 2, I guess, I will be in charge of the police department, and that would be the first thing to make the police department the stellar police department that everybody wants. LMPD should be the place that all police want to come. It should be a place that we trust, and we want them to be the best of the best. So the police would be the key. But being a mayor, it's always interesting when you're a candidate, you say, this is what I'm going to do. Being a mayor, you never know the job you're going to have to do every day because you touch every department. You know, every day I'll be in public works or parks or police. And so when you start talking about the first 100 days, it's everything down there. And it doesn't start with me. It starts with the people that surround me, allowing them to do their job and move forward. Because we can't just say we're going to do safety and not do economic development or do parks or anything else. It's a whole, I have to do the whole job, not just part of the job.
Great. Since LMPD is going to be number one for you, how are you preparing for the result of the DOJ investigation? What is that looking like for you right now?
I am an accountant, and I am used to audits. And we look at audits differently than the people are afraid of an audit. An audit is something to show you how to be better. And so the DOJ is something that shows us where our faults were, and there has been many. There is sub-reports out there from my understanding, and that what the leadership did in the past, the mayor should not be leading, telling the police when to be police and when not to be. But when the report comes out, I think we treat it as an audit. There's also the report that had a couple years ago that came out, and I understand they're working toward that. You look at the audit and you work with the Department of Justice. You don't work against the Department of Justice. So how do we make the police department the best of the best? So I don't see that as a disadvantage. I see it a working relationship, and as I've said before, there will be Rick Sanders, who's my chief, will be coming downtown with me in some capacity. Don't ask me what the capacity is, you'll get the same answer. Billy's asked me 3 or 4 times, and I say the same thing because I can't necessarily promise anybody a job. But he's worked federal. He's worked with DEA. He's worked with state. He's worked local. So how do the systems work? He understands when the Department of Justice comes down what we need to make the city better.
Do you think Chief Shields is doing a good job? And will you keep her?
I will not comment on any employment of anybody at this time, because what I found out when I came into my position, there were employees that should be let go to go find another job someplace else better fitting for them. I found employees that were controlled by their boss and not allowed to do their job. And then there was employees that we should empower to do things. So I can't tell you, I won't tell you right now who is coming and who is going, but it will be decided within a group of people what the city looks like and how it should be going forward.
Do you think she's doing a good job?
She is trying her best with the situation she has at hand. She doesn't have the rank and file behind her at this point from my understanding, but the rank and file that she has underneath her is very, very short. So it's like if I took 2/3 of you all out of here and said everybody else has to do the job and do it the same as all the 2/3. So she's got one arm tied behind her back, say, but yet there's a lot of programs out there and a lot of moving parts, and the police are not necessarily believing in their leadership right now.
So you said that people should be proud to be part of LMPD. How do you plan to address those officer shortages and the culture of impropriety that seems to loom?
The officer shortage, when J-Town put out an application for 2 jobs, we had 100 LMPD asked to be part of our police department. And that was it during the same time frame when LMPD was raising the salaries, because everybody said it was a salary base. It's a leadership base. And then when I have been at U of L games, don't have anything against UK, I just happen to be at a U of L game, I'll go to both. But when we were at a U of L game, I had 25 officers that had retired say, we'll come back if you're downtown. So and it's a matter of hiring the right officers, and the advantage of bringing officers back, you see their ratings and see how they are. As a person that has been part of the Kentucky Law Enforcement Council, I have decertified officers. Like actually, I was the one that took certification away from the Explorer program. Do y'all know what the Explorer program is?
Yes.
It's amazing the amount of people, when I say that, don't know what it is anymore. And that was a horrendous situation in our community that people don't know about. But I was actually part of that. So I understand some officers need to be asked to go find another position, but there's many officers that put on the uniform, the majority of them want to do a great job. So the training that we'll bring in, whether it's the de-escalation training or the training of getting to know the neighborhood, get to know the people in the neighborhood where we do community policing, is very essential. And so the future of what policing will look like, as you said, the Department of Justice will guide us in a way. But I think it's a matter of working with them on what policing should be. We should not, I keep hearing administration or different people say, well, other cities have this problem. My job is not to run all the other cities. My job is to make sure Louisville, as I said before, is a leader. Why can't we be the leading of this is what policing should look like, this is what a community should look like in the future? I don't accept the fact that just because this is happening other places that we don't do anything. I accept the fact that we should be doing something now and try to move it forward.
Great. You mentioned that when you look at the state, it's about bringing in the Fords, the GEs, the things like that, but downtown it's about office space. So how do you envision ensuring a robust workforce with these influxes of businesses when companies are having a hard time holding on to the employees they have now?
Well, there's several ways, and I'll mention a couple right now. One is when you start talking about JCPS, they have the Academies of Louisville. And I don't know if you're all familiar with it. That's a program whereby you go through high school and say you want to be in nursing, you can actually understand your profession before you have to go into it and actually get some of the credits if you want to go into engineering, if you want to be a plumber. So when you come out, we have like Evolve 502 that does the wraparound services, not only the scholarship services, but they also have everything else so the person can get the education. So we have to have the people here have the ability to get the job that they really love, and not always everybody has to go to college. There's IT, there's also the trades. But the other thing is we need to look at Louisville as a college town. As I said, we all love U of L. Well, I don't know. I haven't taken a survey here, so I don't know. I have to, maybe UK or Western fans in here, or Murray even. So, but there is numerous amount of colleges here, anywhere from Simmons to Spalding to Bellarmine. I'm on University of Campbellsville, University of Campbellsville board. And one thing we found on our board, we started with 257 students when I came on, and now we're up over 6,000. And we have locations nationwide and everything, but they're all at a J-Town location. But we have students, multiple students coming from India, the country. And they come here to get their master's or additional training in IT, but Louisville doesn't ask them to stay. So they go right back out to California or they go back to India. So we don't take all the colleges we have here and ask the talent to stay. And we have to make a city that the next generation that are graduating want to live here. Now that's a safe city, but it's also other things that are very important, like in J-Town we're building an amphitheater. The generation that wanted the golf courses is gone. The next generation is looking for open space and to let their kids run and have a good time and enjoy it. So we realize that. So we actually talk about reclaiming land. We took a sewer plant and now is making it a park and an amphitheater that people can enjoy. So when we start talking about that, the other thing is what we did, and I keep saying J-Town because this is what I do, and it can be brought downtown, but it's not the only thing. During 6 months into the pandemic, we realized that the person that waits to the end of the pandemic to attract business is lost. You know, it's in business. They say in business, if you stand still, you're going backwards. The same thing with the city. So 6 months into it, in fact, Carol was helping us with the PR on that, we did the geo-fencing, and you would do like New York. And you all remember during the pandemic, the people in New York couldn't leave their high-rise tower, couldn't leave their apartment. They were clustered there because they didn't want other people to get COVID. So they couldn't do what we do here. They couldn't walk outside, enjoy the air, enjoy the grass. So I did a campaign. I was the president of League of Cities and traveled the state doing this. And this state is the best state to move in. But within this state, Louisville is the best place. Think about it. We have a lot of everything that New York and Chicago and all these big cities have. It's on a smaller scale, but it's on a friendlier scale, and you can enjoy and get around the city and get wherever you want. We have a city that the next generation wants. It's not too big, and it's not too small. So we had Bring Your Job to J-Town. And it's different economic development than what was in the past, because economic development in the past, you always went after the boss, the corporation. We went after the employee. And if you bring the employee, the company will follow. Our companies will follow. So our park right now, which is the largest commerce park in the state, is 99.1% full, except for our office space. All of our other space is full. So downtown can be the same way, but we have to rethink the towers, what they look like in the future. And we, in fact, in our economic development meeting the other day, we were thinking of the live at home, work at home aspect. And we need to have more people living downtown. But why can't you take the office tower that's there and have it work, live with your company headquarters above you? That doesn't look like, I don't mean the big boss, they could actually be below you, so we don't want to make it, but if you actually were in one of these towers and you live there and work there from your apartment, and if they needed a company meeting, you could actually go up to the meeting, but you live downtown, so you could enjoy downtown, but yet you were working from your home and when you needed a meeting. So there's creative ways of attracting people here. There's anywhere from bringing people back to the workplace. We're working on Frankfurt for the daycare credit for the employees. And daycare, it again, is a small business, I think, is for everybody, because it's easy to say a big company can have a daycare within their premise. We have to change planning and zoning for that for safety reasons, and we have to make sure it is safe for the kids. So it's easy to say, okay, we're going to help pay for the daycare in the big companies, but we also have to think of the smaller companies that doesn't have that ability to where you give them credits to where they can pay toward the daycare for the kids. But then the other thing that we don't think of if we have health insurance is what happens when the person goes from government assistance to a job and they have to lose their health insurance in order to go here. We need a step program to whereby the people carry the health insurance until which time they get the health insurance with the company. So there's a lot of touches. That's just touching on a few. As I said, I do this, but it would be an all-day conversation to go through everything we're doing.
Will you touch on, when you talk about living downtown, working downtown, can you talk about your plans for doing that affordably for people, as well as how to revitalize our neighborhood without displacing the people who are already there through gentrification? Okay,
so downtown, let me give you one example without the gentrification, living downtown affordably, which is totally off radar, but you all may want to report on this sometime. Jeff Underhill is redeveloping the Starks building, right? I don't know if you're aware of this.
I'm sure they are.
You probably are. Okay, I'm preaching to the choir here. I mean, you guys keep up on this, but most people don't know that. And they're bringing the arts, the people that are not making the big money, they're wanting to do all the different types of arts programs to live there in an affordable way. And that way, that helps our arts program downtown as a feeder, so people would want to live here, move here, and develop their arts. So our arts go exponentially. But now you're probably thinking of more of, say, the West End when we start talking about affordable housing, or close to, down in this area, or off Broadway. But when we have a great chance right now to make a significant difference on affordable housing. And I've said this ever since Louisville has got the money, the $388 million they got through the American Rescue Plan. We should take $100 million and make a significant change in the amount of housing we have. And I'm not, I don't want to say I'm against apartments, but I want apartments to be a temporary, not a sentence. I want them to be something temporary to ownership. And when we start going to ownership, we have to have government start making it less bureaucratic so that the houses that are dilapidated in areas can get through the system and get to where they can be refurbished, remodeled, because I can take a house that needs to be refurbished and do it a lot quicker, a lot cheaper than I can a vacant lot. So that we are right now, from my understanding, of course this was a couple months ago, doing about 30 houses a year during getting it through our system, metro system, not our system. And we need to push that up to about 300. And then we have to have it to where it's not developed by outside developers, but developed by inside people. And even the homeowners, when they have home ownership of the house, they can get generational wealth. But the one thing people don't think of is once I hand you the keys to the house and say, okay, you know, I understand it's an $800 payment and that we have subsidy for $500 and you make $300. Yes, they have a hard time, they may have a hard time making that $300. So to put an additional burden on them, shouldn't be, because that's how they a lot of times could lose the house in the future. We need to add a insurance policy that's a part of that. And I say insurance policy, if a water heater goes out, we need to have that local people, not a national company that's trying to make a profit on this, a local group that will come in and replace the water heater through the system so the people don't have to borrow $1,000, $2,000 at a high interest rate and eventually lose their house. So as I've said before, we got to quit thinking checkers. We got to think chess, 4 or 5 moves ahead. That when we do hand you the house, how do you keep the house and hand it on for generational wealth? Now, when we start talking about that also, we need the first house, second house, third house. Because what we found is some people want to move around the county. That's fine. That's workforce housing. We got to look at the workforce housing to be where the workforce is, put them where the workforce is, where the services are, and that type of thing. But there's many times people in their own community want to stay there. That's where their family is, and that's where they want to keep on going. And if we only help them with the first house, and we don't have second or third option, they may move out to get to the next house when their income level grows. The one thing is to help them with the house, but the bigger thing is to help them with a job that is paying more. And that's not only for transportation, I can go on transportation with you, or having companies in the area that the people are living in.
Now, you said to put gentrification aside. Was there something separate that you wanted to speak on regarding revitalizing?
Oh, the only thing, I don't mean that I'd eliminate gentrification. That was just the first part of it when I talked about the arts program. When we went into the second part, that was more the gentrification. Okay. So I didn't mean that we don't want to address it, but when we start going into the home ownership and generational wealth, as far as the gentrification, we have to freeze the property values in the areas so they do not increase. The property could increase, but the taxes don't increase. And that's not a hard thing to do, guys. I mean, when you're a senior citizen, you get your property taxes freeze. So there is a means and method of doing an area as a freeze, to where that freeze is there until which time the people are allowed to grow the wealth, turn the wealth into the next thing, but they're not paying the taxes while they're there.
You spoke about not only getting the people to houses, but getting the better paying jobs. How do you envision working on some of the generational poverty issues, especially when it comes to gang culture, when people make more money doing that than they do working minimum wage in some of these programs? Do you have any ideas around that?
So when we start talking about gangs, we would go back into policing, and the policing, the one thing that many times it's called intelligence-led policing, but we understand Rick did this in Chicago 25 years ago when we wouldn't admit we had gangs, but now we do. So we would eliminate, and I use that figuratively, don't quote me exactly, but we would make sure the heads of the cartel and gang leaders are arrested and moved on, because our kids are being used by them for the drug trade and everything else. And when we start talking about the drugs now, and y'all, again, I keep talking to you all, and y'all know all this, the drugs are not coming from Mexico. They're coming from the lakes down. They're coming north down. And they're coming to us, and we're becoming the focal point of the transition, and we need to stop that. So we have to be very strong about that, the drugs, the gangs, and the guns, and take them all off the streets at one time. And unfortunately right now, I think J-Town's getting more drug busts going than Metro Louisville because of the shortage. They don't have time to investigate. I mean, your police officers are 3 or 4 runs behind just trying to catch up just to write the report. But the other part of that is how do we bring the jobs here? you bring the incentives to bring the jobs here. Now, government does not attract business. Business attracts business. And the one thing I think they've done wrong down here is Metro's tried to be the person to attract the business. And then you got a GLI that's trying to attract the business. So if I'm coming to this area, who do I talk to? And how do I get through the system? So it's very confusing what it would be. So if I was a reporter looking to relocate here, would you call the mayor and say, are you fair and balanced, and would you be the one that I'd work with? No, you're going to call another reporter and ask them if this is a great place to live. Same thing with business. If I was going to relocate another hardware store in another town, I'm going to check with the business in town. How is the town to work with? How is the retail in your area? How is the government? So we need to get business attraction back to business attraction, but we also need to do beyond storefronts. I am a storefront. Hardware store is a storefront. I understand what retail is, but not everybody wants retail right now. Not everybody wants to be the restaurant. We have to also have economic development in different parts of this community, not just downtown. I love downtown. It is the engine, but it's not the only engine. We have to have economic development people in the West End, and then there's 9 neighborhoods there. I hope y'all report them by neighborhood, not by the word West End. I'm going to do a sidetrack here. About 6 years ago, I did do a campaign to eliminate the compass in this town. And I'll tell you all this, what's on record, I guess. But we have to so much get rid of the compass because we feel like that according to what East End, West End, South End, we rate people by that. But I mean, just think on the West End, there's 9 neighborhoods there. And there's a lot of great neighborhoods down there. So rather than report, as in the West End, report the neighborhood, or report the city, or report the area. So that way, the whole area doesn't get whitewashed. Okay, that's my chastisement for a minute. Jobs. Get back to jobs. But what we did in J-Town, we started a jobs program. In a jobs program, we incentivized them. The GLI as an MSA would attract the business here. You would talk to the business. What kind of location do you want? Do you want town center? Do you want country? Do you want by the water, or what do you want? And they would pick 2 or 3 locations, and it's up to us to sell. We're not in competition. We're in competition with Chicago, Miami, China. We're not in competition with J-Town and downtown. And so from that, if J-Town got the lead, we would give you a jobs incentive program, and we've done this for the last 5.5, 6 years, going through the pandemic and everything. And our average salary coming to our town is $68,700. So the incentives the jobs that you bring to an area of town is something very important. And it's not only the West End that we have to build up, but downtown, we so many times forget our medical complex we have down here. And I know they're calling it LouMed now, but that's something that's very critical. Why do you want to have to go to Cleveland for specialty? Why can't we take our medical complexes of all of our our hospitals down here and make them a center to where everybody wants to come here? That's a benefit to us, and a benefit to where we have the best of the best and it also brings in the nurses, the doctors, and the training to where people in this area have a place to get a great job. Again, I can go on, but.
No, that's great. And feel free, if other people have.
This is a personal interview here.
Feel free, that's okay. Yeah, jump in, follow up if there's something that you specifically want to. Go back to talking about early childhood development and child care in Louisville. You talked about making that more accessible. That come with some zoning challenges for people who work downtown. But what other early childhood plans, especially as we just look at what tests are dropping in our literacy investigation that just dropped today, there's a lot of work to be done in those early years. What do you envision around that population getting ready for preschool?
6 years ago, or 5 years ago, I've got COVID numbers. Anything past 2 years is tough for us to mathematically figure. But Glenn C., who was another mayor, and I started looking into preschool. So it's not something I'm doing because I'm running for office. We looked into preschool, and what does it mean to do preschool in our community? And the one thing we found out is that again, I'm probably not teaching you all something, you probably already reported this before, is a young black male who gets to 3rd grade that does not have the reading, writing, and math, his destiny is 70% in the wrong way. And so from that, we took the passion of what does preschool look like in our community? And one of the interesting things we found out is you can't take a square box, this is what preschool should be, and this is what it should be across all of Metro. It doesn't work. People learn a different way, people come from a different lifestyle, and not everybody goes to the same place to preschool. So we took the preschools and we looked at which ones are having the best practices, and we didn't want to change them, but what areas needed more preschool and what areas needed help, and it went anywhere from we should bring in the churches because they would be helpful, the nonprofits, and JCPS, and come up with a system. Unfortunately, Glenn C. passed away, and then we hit a pandemic. So in the future, we would, again, I would bring up the same thing of how do we bring preschool to the community? And it could be a mixture of preschool and daycare, so that if you do have the kids working, that would be an easy one. So if you're incentivizing the company to do the daycare, also do it to where it becomes a preschool for the kids that are there, because you're already subsidizing on a state level. Excuse me. The next thing would be to make sure that you work with JCPS, because we want the kids to be ready in kindergarten, first grade at the level that all kids are coming in at the same level. One kid that's coming from a house that has two parents that are teachers is going to come in different than a house that has two parents that may not, or one parent that may not have the degree in high school. So and it's the passion that the house brings to the education of the kid, no matter which house it is. So we want to make sure that the kids have the starting point so that when they move forward, they're all working quickly. We don't have to go a step back and try to re-help the kids get forward. But the other thing is, I was talking to, thank you. Is it open? No, it's open. And many people don't talk about it on the education level. I know you went into preschool, and you've been with me long enough today that you know I kind of go sideways sometimes. But the truancy that we have in schools is something that many people don't bring up. And why are we having it, and what should we do about it, whether it's kids that don't come to school because they're homeless, which we have a huge population of that, are the kids or the parent doesn't think it's important to go to school, or they are doing something else. We need to address the truancy, because if 70% of the kids are absent more than 1 month a year, that's a problem, because the teacher has to keep going back and bringing up, going back and bringing up. So when we start looking at the future, not only the preschool, but while they're in school, and I'm not going to run JCPS, but we, as people that are part of the community, it'd be nice for us to start working on getting the kids to school so they can be educated.
Well, I have one more question for you, and then I'm going to start calling on people if anybody has any follow-ups. But this year has been, we probably could say this every time, it's an incredibly divisive time, and incredibly political ads are nasty, and I think it lends the impression that your opponent is also your enemy. And I would like, in the spirit of John McCain's famous moment of campaign civility, tell me something about your opponent that you respect, you like, something nice about Craig Greenberg on the record.
He's a nice guy that has great intentions, but doesn't have the experience to go where he needs to go.
All right, short and simple.
Short and sweet. And I agree with you. The political climate that we have, there's PACs out there that will be reporting this and reporting that. As a sitting mayor, I've got to work all day long to make sure the community doesn't go down rather than goes up. The one thing I don't like is when a candidate starts making up things, or taking one sentence out of what you all said in an article and then putting it out there, or inferring or referencing. If I happen to walk down the same sidewalk with somebody that we're best friends, by the way, since we're in the same room, it's going to be reported that we're all great friends. But that's sad. But rather than base it on what have you done and where are you going, so many times when there's nothing there to do that, we go sideways. We look for some reason to that is imaginarily there that is not true, and that is a sad part of the downside of politics. It would be nice if we all say that we want to do this the way we've been doing it for the last year and not come to the last week, and whoever has the most money can put out the most ads and make the other person look bad. But it's a given fact that the one thing I found that going into the mayor's race, people want change and they want hope. And now, to be biased on my side, they keep saying we want somebody that's a proven leader. And that's not to say Craig isn't a nice guy, but they see, as I said, I am the first one that's running for mayor of another city without moving. It's a historic thing. You all got to report that. Put that in the Guinness Book. But the thing is that when we start looking at where we're going to move the city, we have to look at what we have already done and how we can bring this downtown and move the city forward.
Background information, so I didn't have to waste your time with all that. Before I ask my last question, another question, does anyone have something that they would like to ask?
You all have a big advantage or disadvantage with me in the sense I've been doing this for 12 years, so there's a lot of reporting out there, for better for worse, that you can report on. Hopefully it's all better. There's no worse. But again, sometimes you try things and they don't succeed, but you come back and try something else. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt the question, but go ahead.
Well, you talk a lot about, since nobody's jumping up, but you talk a lot about having to play the long game and how this is about the next generation, and this is about you got to plant the seed that you may not sit, the tree that you may not sit beneath. So talk to me about how, when you're in office, that you will communicate the progress you're being made, because 8 years is a short game. So if we're playing a long game, how will we see that in your short game? Does that make sense? First,
let me compliment you for you saying when I'm in office, and also having me win 2 elections, but that's okay. I'm just joking. Long game.
Hypothetical here.
I know. If you can't smile in life, it's not worth it. But when you start looking at how do you measure success, the one thing you'll find out about me is anything I've done in J-Town, I've never put my name on and never taken credit for. It's not about me. It's about what we leave behind. It's not about the money you make. And I don't mean that as a political statement. It's what we live by, and you can ask the people around me. But the things that could be quantitative, let's say one of the things you're trying to do, or I will be doing, is to have a savings and loan for the people in the West End. And that the fact that the people in the West End, it's different to put a savings and loan that's owned by the black population, because they could be in Atlanta, they could be somebody else, but it's not, you still get credit for it. I would rather have it to where the depositors that have money in the bank are the owners, so it's a co-op type bank. So as the time frame, that would keep on going, but you would start that now. Now that would have to grow, it would have to have seed money or something like that, but that would be something that you would be quantitative. The murder rate coming down would be also something that you could quantify. I mean, you look at the murder rate average, yes, it's going down, but it's still 3 times what it was 6 years ago or so. So, and the success rate is we start filling these office tires down here. And as I said, at the end of my tenure, if you are inviting people to come here, to live here, the confidence you have in the safety, and this is the place you want to raise your family, that's the biggest factor. And that's not something that the reporter can go in and put the quantities down. Now, as an accountant, we have a big challenge. And that's what in J-Town, I know you all have reported this, and I think Billy did it. You know, we were $17 million in debt, and I refinanced it, paid it off 11 years early, saved $1 million, and put additional money in the bank to build the new facilities we have for cash without raising taxes. You all probably have already reported that Louisville's budget, which just sits around $800 million. They got another $388 million in American Rescue Plan money. But in order to balance the budget, I believe they had to get another $71 million. That money is all going to subside, and inflation is going to take a factor. So they're going to have somebody downtown that's an accountant that understands how to bring the same services with less money, and where the people are still making money with the services, so they want to provide them, but that the money that you spend is frugally spent. I'm not going to throw out that they're wasting money, but it's just a matter of how you spend the money. J-Town's paving contract at one time was $65 a ton. Louisville's paving contract was $72 a ton. As an accountant, I know numbers, so I'm sorry. But that sounds, now our paving contract was $800,000, theirs was $20 million. So you would think they would get it cheaper. So it's a matter of how you handle the vendors and how you handle what's going on in the city.
Great.
You
Thank you.
talk a lot about, well, you've talked about, wanting to bring Rick Sanders in some capacity with you, and obviously he's leading the department in Jeffersontown. And you've talked about his experience going back a long time. He also, led the Kentucky State Police, and KSP has had some pretty well-reported problems, including the Hitler quoting training materials that got through, as well as the warrior mentality that those reflected, higher levels of fatalities, limited accountability for police officers who gave false testimony in various cases. What's your perspective on that? On his kind of role, having led KSP, which has its own troubles, and what your experience has been working with him?
Well, the one experience I believe you're talking about is probably back in the 90s. Or it was before Rick was there. Many of them were there before Rick was there. Let me expel something. There's one thing to say that Rick was there and the governor was the one that hired him. Actually, his hiring process, he didn't even meet the governor until actually he was hired. They go through a board, like this, and they hire the next KSP officer, and he goes up there as the KSP officer. When he was up there, a lot of that was worked on, and a lot of the process that he had, he changed. I can't tell you the details. He would have to be the one to actually tell you the details, but the system, one little thing that's not in what you were talking about, our Angel program, he took that statewide. Social workers, he took that statewide. So he was looking at different ways, and the interesting thing was he did that through federal grants that didn't cost the state any money. And he was also very stern on people. Now, not always, and sometimes we look at police officers, we have to look at, sometimes they have to be taking certification away, and sometimes they need help. Because just like in here, I mean, if you do something that you're not keeping your car clean as a police officer, that's different than if you do the Explorer program. So I mean, we have to realize what the situation is, and each person needs a different circumstance, and he did do that. Did over time, was there one here or there maybe didn't do the right decision? All of us can play Monday morning quarterback, but I say the most part, his career has been absolutely looking toward making the police department the one that you'd be thankful to have those cops there for you to help. State troopers, when you start talking about policing, I'm going to go south again a little bit, that's the scariest job to ever have, because you may be the state trooper out in Inez, Kentucky, and the closest one to you, if a situation happens, is 200 miles away. He had one police officer, or one state trooper, God, they don't like to be called police officers, they're gray, they're not blue, that actually had a knife stuck in his neck, and was laying on the ground, and it took an hour and a half for the trooper to get there to try to save him. He didn't make it. So I mean, that is a scary situation when you don't have backup. I mean, here, backup is within minutes, even if one of the other departments besides LMPD has to help you.
You also talked about wanting to attract business by attracting workers here, right? Like getting the workers, like if the workers come, business will follow. There have been some moves made by Republican officials in cities to restrict queer and trans people's ability to participate in certain jobs or in certain aspects of public life, and sort of culture war issues, that's what some people call it, issues like that. And I'm interested in your perspective on like if that's something you'd be looking at doing, or if you would stay away from those kinds of things, since it's been talked about in terms of those sorts of restrictions scaring away especially younger workers from moving to certain cities.
I am a mayor now. Mm-hmm. I don't do that now. I'm not going to do it when I go downtown. I mean, it's interesting to say when you're a Republican, I've never known the label. I've just known the people. And in fact, the first slogan we used was the mayor for everybody, and that's kind of what we are. And back in J-Town, our slogan on our trucks is "We're everybody's family." That means everybody, you know. Is there going to be situations that we have to rectify? Sure. I mean, but I'm not going to make the situations to where it causes any problems. We have a community that we all have to work together. We shouldn't be divisive. We have to unify this community, and that means everybody. So I would take away the label of R. And as I said before, just because somebody did it doesn't mean I'm going to do it. And that I'll have the same comment, well, you're a Republican and you'll go south on us even though you promised it. Look at my 12 years. Have I ever done, I don't want to say ever, everybody's done something wrong here or there, but I would say for the most part, look what I've done for 12 years, and that will be what we're going for the next 8 years. Thank you. See, she said it. I'm going to quote it. I won't. Yes?
What do you think is the biggest problem facing Louisville?
The unification of everybody in Louisville to get the all communities working together. And that means anywhere from the policing to all the different nationalities and ethnicities all the way around. And I know many times we talk about the black and white community, which is very much divisive because of the civil unrest we have. But there's the immigrant community. There's the LGBTQ community. So it's going to take a mayor that understands how to unify people, how to work with people all the way around. As I said, it doesn't compare the same, but it is a comparison of how I united the state of all the cities moving forward. But also how we work here is something that we have to get rid of the labels and start looking at the people and how we help each other. When I talked about getting rid of the compass, when we get rid of the compass, all of a sudden people start getting to know people. At one time, I had the government and churches getting ready to work together to do a campaign on Be Kind. And that was something that I told the churches, which was hard for them to do. I said, you can't get up on the pulpit and say be kind. We have to do this through some millennials that would do it to where it's just, let's try it. Just try it. Today is a day you be kind to somebody else. And we started the campaign, then pandemic hit, and nobody could go outside, so that didn't work. But there is a system by which we have to bring the whole community back together to be unified in order to make this. Why can't we be the examples that other cities want to be like? I keep saying that. And that sounds idealistic, but if you don't shoot for it, you'll never make it. I'll stop. Yes?
You talk about that example. Is there another city around us or in the state whose leadership that you look at as the model that you would bring to Louisville? Either similar size city or any city?
No. There is other, I don't have the examples right with me, but there's other studies that I've read and looked at. Now it depends on what it is, whether you're talking about parks or civil unrest or policing or dealing with economic development. There's constantly studies that are out there, then you look and compare and make the best come here. But I don't really want to be like another city. I want to be like us. We have a lot of talent here, guys. I mean, look at what we have in this room. So we have to take what we have here and move it forward. I don't want to sound like I'm avoiding the question, but so many times we keep going, we don't have what we need. Let's go hire somebody else. By the way, you all got hired and brought here. I shouldn't have said that, but that's all right. You all enjoy being here. But you are? Cool, good.
Addiction issues have been a big problem across the country, but definitely here. And traditionally, a lot of the approach to that has been to lock people up when they get caught with drugs or whatever, and they don't always have the services they need behind bars. Are you open, something that's being talked about more is harm reduction, where it's things like making sure naloxone is widely available and training people how to use it, or providing needle syringe exchange, programs where people can get, safe materials to use. Are you open to using, devoting city, personnel, resources, support to harm reduction centric efforts to help deal with the overdose crisis that we have?
Well, the easy question is yes. The true question, I'm already doing that. We started the Angel program 6.5, 7 years ago before it became a Courier-Journal headline. We had social workers before it became the cool thing to do. And I'll go through quickly the Angel program. And what we did is, for those who know me, I usually, when we're sitting around a table discussing how we should move forward, I never sit at a rectangle table, because you realize the person at the head of the table is the controlling factor. So we always sit at a round table so that everybody at the table is equal. And I say that because what I started years ago, we started HERT, Heroin Emergency Response Team. And around the table was the healing place, VOA, was doctors, nurses, police, and also people that were going through recovery. And from that, what I asked, I said, so many times we do symposiums on what happened. And it makes us feel really bad, but it doesn't give a solution. So I am very empathetic and sympathetic at how you got addicted and how you're doing things. But let's work on what works. And from that, we put Narcan in police, fire, and public works. And all of them were trained in Narcan, and everybody knew how to do it, and we administrated it. And then from that, we brought the Angel program, whereby if you brought your drugs and paraphernalia and walked to my police department and said, I need help, we had a social worker that would go through all the different steps of triage and what you need, because the addiction many times were all different. It could mean you need part-time, you need full-time, sometimes you need to be out of town, sometimes you need to be in town because you may have kids, some have health insurance, some need scholarship money, some need something like the healing place that's free. So we have all that set up right now. We have over 300 locations nationwide that we can send you to. It doesn't cost the taxpayers anything. The social workers are paid through grant money. The transportation is paid through donations. And the system is set up to where we still know the person the very first person we helped, we still know them, we still keep track of them. So many times on addiction, we think of detox and that's it. And we don't realize that the person that's addicted will fall 7 to 9 times. And I tell you this, and just to kind of go back to the personal history, my grandmother started Recovery Incorporated, Kentucky. And there's 2 different ones you have to watch. And it's for people that had behavioral problems, to help them to get them in a circle. And my grandfather started AA. So I understand helping people and what it takes to make sure that people healed, and it never stops. So and then from that, we got the REACH program, because we realized that everybody doesn't want to walk into the police department. But it is amazing. Once we got the credibility of somebody walking into the police department doing that, the police said, this is fantastic. Because on the one side, you're taking the person and helping them see a better light, and also the possibility of them committing a crime. So it's a win-win situation, but we realized we had to reach out. When you start talking about the needle program, when we first started, we're going to put a spot right here in the Courier-Journal. You can come and exchange your needles. They can't get here. And so the next step is to do their outreach of the needle program, because the HIV and everything is horrendous and everything. So yes, I'm already doing that, and we're already moving forward. And to let you know, we think, well, J-Town's Angel program. The Angel program has been recognized on the Senate floor in Washington, D.C., and President Obama had Brittany Garrett up and recognized her in Washington, D.C. also for the Angel program. And now she's in charge of the Angel program for this area of the country. So, and it's in all the different police KSP, and we put it in, I think we're up to 10 cities in Louisville, or the state. So that's a question that was a softball. Thank you. And I could go on and on about that, because that's a passion. And if you talk to Jennifer at VOA or Karen down there, they realize how much we're involved. It's a system, and in fact tonight I've got to do a forum with the nonprofits, that government, we help the person, but we turn it over to VOA, but we watch the person. We don't try to do what they do as a specialty. We shouldn't try to do that as government. We should help the person get off the street, watch that they get through the whole system. But there's another part of this that you brought up, and as you know, I can talk. But it is when the person goes to jail. We can't legally keep you in jail, and I don't want to infer that we do, but a detox takes longer sometimes than 24 hours, 48 hours, or even longer. And then, as you know, that if you were detoxed for 3 days and you got out, you think you can go back and take the same drugs, it'd kill you. So we have to have a system where if you have an addiction problem and you leave jail, here is the people that can help you, and here's the system that will get you healed and let you go into a diversion program to let you be able to get, and you're never healed. It's a continued life. I had a godson that got addicted, went through many years, went through 20 years of sobriety. And then he was one that believed that he didn't like prescription drugs. He didn't trust them, but he trusted drugs he'd get on the street. Imagine that. He lived down in Florida, and he got sick. And rather than go and get prescription drugs, he went and got a street and overdosed. He was 42 years old. So I understand the plight. It's not a day one, we do this and we're done. It's a continuation for the rest of the life of the people. Sorry for the long definition.
No,
But
that's okay. Yeah, you talk a lot about the things that you're already doing. What are you excited about that's already happening in Louisville that you're looking forward to picking up the ball and running with?
I'm excited on the entrepreneurship that this city is looking to do. We have a lot, and we have a lot of entrepreneurs that really want to do to bring the city back alive. And it's a city that we shouldn't, as I keep saying, quit looking outside. When I traveled the state and I went to all the different cities, I always went to the local place. And we have a lot of great local people here that we should be ramping up, we should be pushing forward. And that excitement, they're ready. They're ready to implode and move forward and say, this is our city. We're coming out of a pandemic, and we're not used to, as humans, being masked and told what to do. And we're wanting to do something, wanting to have a great time, wanting to smile and laugh and help people. So I think I see the city doing it, but they're not quite trusting the leadership that it can continue in the way that they see it. The next thing I see is a city that would love to come downtown, and then we have a problem downtown of the perception of safety and the reality of safety. So you need somebody that'll be downtown here that can say, hey, it's safe to come downtown and have a good time. We don't do a very good job of PR in our own town. And that's what I originally started off with you guys. And we need to do the PR to where, look at what we're already doing. Look how, I went down to Nulu for the chili competition. I ate every one of them. Oh my God.
You skipped the garlic one.
I did skip the garlic. Me and garlic just don't marry well together. But and it was a great festival, but nobody knew about it. I mean, I don't want to say nobody. They were very packed, but the rest of the community doesn't realize how great the rest of the community is doing. And that's one thing when we talk about what Portland is doing, what Russell is doing, what PRP is doing. We don't know what each other is doing. And in the Cuban community, they have a saying: if we eat together, we get to know each other, we get to be friends. And we need to do more of that, especially if you eat chili, of everybody's chili. But that's kind of where I'm excited. This city is ready to get excited. This city is ready to be the leader city. We are just sitting on the cusp. And we just need somebody downtown, like myself, I'll be biased, that can do that. That can say, this is what we're going to do, and we're going to do all the channels at one time, so everybody is happy. I am not naive that everybody's going to be happy. There's going to be naysayers. But get rid of the R and the D. Get rid of inside, outside the Waterson. I mean, as I said, we've merged this town, but we've never united this people. Because the people outside the Waterson, inside the Waterson, or whether they're on one side of town or the other side of town, we need a mayor that can actually rally the troops. Jerry was good at that when he was here. He was a good cheerleader for the community.
Tell them about your campaign team.
Our campaign team, you talk Republican, you set up your, they call it the kitchen cabinet. It's just your starter team and everything, and they keep growing. And we started at my house, and we, at one time, everybody was around about 3 months in. And I said, I've never even thought of whether you're an R or D, or what you are, independent too. I don't want to eliminate the independents. But I said, tell me what you are. It was literally 50-50. Our campaign team, I am a Republican, but our campaign team is 50% Democrats and 50% Republicans. And actually there are more females on our campaign team than males. There are a mix of different races and different nationalities. And so unintentionally, but it's what I normally do, we had a very good mix. And it's probably, you all would have to quantify this to make sure it's true. I don't want to say anything that's not true, or don't put it out if it's not. I'm probably the first Republican person running for office as mayor, that yeah, he may have one pact, it's not my pact, there's a pact that's a Republican quote pact, but there's two Democratic pacts for Dieruf. So when a Democratic pact goes against their own Democrats, they must see me as the true centrist, because I've got both Democrats and Republicans supporting me in that sense. That's my political statement, by the way, but okay.
Thank you very much for coming in here. Does anyone else have a question?
I appreciate y'all
One
listening.
minor question, get it in here at the end. What's your take on bridge tolls and their role on the economic impact here in Louisville?
Okay, I'm gonna go 2 answers on that. You know me, I never answer one. Let me start with the program that was started through KIPTA, because I was their board chair, and and I was also on their board. You all familiar with the old, it's called something new now, but it used to be the Ticket to Ride. And Ticket to Ride, and just give you a quick definition, is if the people, employees here wanted to work at the Georgetown Toyota plant, they could get a van, they could all get in, 8 or 10 of them, split, the van didn't cost them anything, gas and insurance, and they could get to Toyota and back. So they'd save gas, you didn't have to own a car, didn't put wear and tear. I developed that with KIPTA that we can do that locally. And so that means that a group, say in the West End, could get the van and drive out to J-Town to work. But it also means if you're in Indiana and you get the van and come to work in Louisville, you don't pay a toll. So that's one version. The other part is we need to eliminate the toll off the bridges here. And that's again, there's several reasons, but one is that the people coming here shouldn't have to pay the toll, because why are we getting the free bridge in another part of the state? I would be working on a federal to try to get that overtaken and changed. The other part is we are an MSA. And what I mean by that is, as a KIPTA board member, we have all the different judges, we have all the different mayors, anywhere from Jeffersonville, New Albany, and out away from on our side. And so I know all these people, and so when we attract a business here, it should be here. We shouldn't be in competition with Jeffersonville. We should have it to where you can go across the bridge, and you don't necessarily have to go across the second bridge all the time to not pay the toll, for you people that are down here that are trying to get around the toll. So I am, long story short, I would like to see us eliminate the toll and not keep raising the toll to a higher level, which makes it less and less likely that you're going to come across the bridge and want to work here. It's a deterrent. We don't need it.
Can you guess which side of the river he lives on?
You're on the Indiana side?
Yes, sir.
We love you anyway. That's okay.
That's how we treat him here.
Yeah.
We tell them safe things, yeah.
But it was interesting, because we have the largest commerce park in the state. Okay, so when they were getting ready to do the East End Bridge, a lot of my council members go, "Oh my God, the park is just going to siphon go over to Indiana." I said, no. The places they put over there is going to help our park grow, because you may have an Amazon over there, but they're going to need suppliers. Why can't they come from J-Town? And that's exactly what happened. That's what I mean. We're not in competition with the other cities around us here. We should treat them as jewels and work together. The other thing, and again, we have 80 cities. I was president of the local cities in the state, so I'm very much city-centric. I understand what that means. But think of it this way. Okay, we have a police shortage. J-Town has close to 60 officers. That's 60 officers that Louisville would have to have if J-Town went out of existence, but they're there. So some of the services that the smaller cities have are services that don't have to be used by the tax dollars that are collected by Metro Louisville. So sometimes we think it's a deterrent, but actually it's actually a helping force unless it gets into a battle like this. And we shouldn't have that. We should have a working relationship. Think about going to Frankfurt. There's 419 cities, and 80 of them are here. You have a high percentage, if we all go to Frankfurt together, well, 81 if you count Louisville, of trying to get something passed as cities that you would, because you're almost 23% of the cities across the state. So let's take what we have and make it beneficial, and quit fighting amongst ourselves and make this city go where we want it to go.